Awesome. All right, welcome everyone. Today is a really exciting place to kick us off. We're on page 14 and we're at the second full paragraph right at the top. And what we're going to be diving into is what is known as Bill Wilson's white light spiritual experience. And before we dive into it, and also just in the off chance I might be thoughtful, that's always the goal, give you guys a chance to find it, I'll do just the briefest little touch of review. So page 14, these were revolutionary. So before we dive in, and what I want to just point out is last week what Terry and I were diving into was the course of action that Bill Wilson took to get these results. On page 13, we saw Bill Wilson take essentially what later became the 12 steps. We saw him make a third step decision. We saw him, do some fifth step work. It was a little out of order, but he did some 4, 5, 6, 7. And we spoke about amends as well as the 11th step. And the reason, before I'm going into Bill Wilson's white light spiritual experience, the reason I'm talking about this before I dive in and we break it down is because it is important to understand that this is the result. I take the actions and I get the result. So the spiritual awakening is the result of the 12 steps. I don't gotta sit around and wait for a spiritual awakening to work the steps. It's the exact opposite. And that, again, I work the steps to get the experience. That's all. That's all I wanted to just drive home, hammer home, rock and roll. Let's go. Page 14. It says these were revolutionary and drastic proposals. And what he's talking about is the course of action that later became the 12 steps. I'll just point some out. Anyone else here show up and see the steps on the wall or on the Zoom screen or on page 59 and think, oh boy, that's pretty drastic. Do you know what I mean? Ooh, I don't know about that. And I just like to emphasize that because none of us, including our intrepid co-founder, Bill Wilson, was jazzercised about the steps. He wasn't showing up and he's like, woo, I can't wait. Do you know what I mean? He even was like, whoa, that's a little much. And I point that out because willingness does not, rarely does willingness look like, I'd love to. Often, willingness looks like, I don't want to. I'm scared. It sounds like an awful idea. I don't know if it'll help. I don't know if it'll work for me, but doing it anyways. That's what willingness looks like. So it says these were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, which is to say, he did the actions. I already said this, I am reiterating. He did the steps, got the results. That's how it works. But the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a peace and serenity. Or there was the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. And so this is Bill Wilson's white light spiritual experience. Now, I'm just going to take us on a little tangent-poo, which I think that's why I was like, Terry, you want to go first? Because I knew I was going to go a little long, but we're going to give Terry lots of time. If you have your copy of Lois Remembers, which I promise you, you're a cool kid. If you're here today, you're a cool kid. You don't have to have a copy of Lois Remembers to be a cool kid. We'd love you. But if you have your copy of Lois Remembers, pop on over to page 89. And we're just going to read another glimpse into how Bill Wilson described his spiritual experience. Page 89. And it's the fourth full paragraph. Bear with me. I have a hard time counting, apparently. And actually, that was true when I was drinking. Anyone say they go out for 3 and somehow they miscounted and there was a multiplication that was happening. I don't know what was the coefficient. It was alcoholism, the physical allergy. That was the coefficient. Anyway, sorry, math tangent, bringing it back. All right. And he describes, and I'm going to point something out. He describes it as alone. Bill sank deeper than ever into the abyss. The last trace of his obstinacy, that stubbornness, was finally crushed out. And he said to himself, I'll do anything for release. He cried aloud, if there is a God, let him show himself. The effect was electric. He later told how the room blazed with light, how he was filled with a joy beyond description. In his mind's eye, he stood on a mountaintop, and a great wind, not of air, but of capital S spirit, blew through him. He was free. After a while, the ecstasy subsided, and a great peace filled him, comforting him like a living presence. Hang that up. Sorry, I got a call on WhatsApp as I was talking. I don't know if you could hear that, but it startled me. What was I reading? It was like a call from a living presence. Small C called. I'm glad he's reaching out. That's delightful. I'll give him a buzz after. All righty. So it says, after a while, the ecstasy subsided, and a great peace filled him, comforting him like a living presence. So this is the God of the preachers, he thought. And so that's just another description of Bill Wilson's spiritual experience. And one of the things I want to point out is Bill Wilson had a type of spiritual experience that is described in William James's Varieties of Religious Experience. Because if you're looking for some summer reading out in Puerto Rico on the beach, just looking for some light reading, that's Varieties of Religious Experience. I'm teasing. It's known as a bit of a dry book. I love it, though. And in it, there's a section where William James describes spiritual experiences that are of the luminous variety, ones where there's this white light. And I want to point something out. Oftentimes, at least where I live in the world, when we go to meetings, we'll hear people say again and again, it's sort of like the best I could hope for is the educational variety. We almost turn into Eeyore, you know what I mean? I've lost my tail, like all I've had is the educational variety. I don't know anyone who's had one like Bill. And then I think I should bounce around like Chigger or something. That's probably the undiagnosed ADHD. And I'm showing up and I'm like, nonsense. And I want to point some stuff out real quickly, because I don't want to take too much time. I'm taking too much time, but I want to point something out. The elements of Bill Wilson's spiritual experience is a sense of victory, a peace and a serenity that he had never known, confidence. And it talks about, in this one, a joy and a serenity. That's what his experience was. And that's not too Fruit Loops. You know what I mean? That's not too cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But I will tell you, when I got here, even that was unattainable for a silly little drunk like me. And then the other thing I want to point out is that I can't stay well on one experience. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, did anyone here ever stay well on one drink, one hoot of crack, one pill, one bite, you know what I mean? Anyone stay well on one? I can't stay well on one spiritual experience. I need more. And what I want to point out is the spiritual awakening that I get is absolutely none of my business. And I have had powerful and profound spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings. Man, not once in my life did I sell the power of God short. Not once in my life, bear with me, sorry. Not once in my life did I sell the power of alcohol and crack cocaine and pills and codependency. Not once in my life did I sell that power short. So I'm reminded that when I come to the rooms, I ought not sell the power of God short. Do you know what I mean? I didn't come to booze thinking, I don't know if booze could help this problem. I didn't show up to Hoot a Crack and think, I don't know if crack would make this better or not. No, I was absolutely convinced in the power of alcohol, in the power of crack, in the power of substances. I was absolutely convinced at that power. So why would I sell this power short? And the last thing that I want to talk about Bill Wilson's white light spiritual experience. And is in his mind's eye, he's on top of a mountain, and the wind is blowing through him, not of air, but of spirit. Now, Bill Wilson's paternal grandfather was an alcoholic. And Bill Wilson's paternal grandfather, actually, I'll share the screen because I have the power. Uh, it's not my power, it's God's power, and I do have host privileges. Uh, but Bill Wilson's paternal grandfather climbed to the top of this mountain, and the mountain is Mount Aeolus. I'm probably not pronouncing it right in Vermont. And when Bill Wilson, with his grandfather, William C. Wilson, climbed to the top of this mountain, he had a profound spiritual experience that allowed him to stay sober. And I know I had a hard time pronouncing the word Aeolus. I know that's a tricky one to say. And part of why it's tricky is that word comes from the Greek god of wind. Tell me that's not a coincidence. Do you know what I'm saying? His paternal grandfather sobers up, and after having a spiritual awakening at the top of that mountain, Bill Wilson's white light spiritual experience, he imagines himself at the top of a mountain and a wind of spirit blowing through him. Man, there's no coincidences. And the Bill Wilson House, it's called the Wilson House. For a brief time in its history, it was known as the Mount Aeolus Tavern and Grill, or Tavern and something. So there's some history there. So with that, pew pew, over to Terry.
Thanks, Paige. That was great. I didn't know that. Yeah, I think what struck me in this paragraph is we're looking at the first part of the 12th step, right? Having had a spiritual awakening. And like Paige was saying, these are sneaky descriptions of spiritual experience. And, we're given all these power tools, but they don't work unless we plug them into power. I guess if that makes sense, right? And when we do that, meaning there has to be a surrender to that. And it says the definition of surrender means to fully accept, and that's it right there. I fully accepted that. Uh, that I couldn't come to I guess it was like it was a state of being to be put into a surrendered moment. Like I couldn't self-will my way into it. Today I don't wake up every single day and surrender. More like every day I wake up and I volunteer. Here I am, God, show me the deal, surprise me, help me be useful today, right? But giving up everything and letting go absolutely and doing the things I really don't want to do, like these drastic proposals. Paige, what's the 1930s definition of proposal? I'd like to know that.
I'll get it for you.
Yeah, thank you. Like something will happen, and this is what happened to Bill, and you felt lifted up. That spirit running through Bill. It's like kind of going through a cold room to a hot room, right? An effect. It's an effect that happens because of the step. I love the effect produced by alcohol, and I love the effect produced by the steps. It's an electric effect, like being shocked, right? I feel lifted up. I mean, you ever feel like you go to a meeting and you're like, oh my God, I feel lifted up. It just happened to me like an hour ago. Like I was in an anger, I was in like let's say a rage fit, I was cranky for the last 3 hours. I've been awake since 2 o'clock in the morning and worked all day. I've been cranky and I've been resentful. And then my boy Tony Z in the Bronx, we go to an in-person meeting of my home group. He said, Terry, you're speaking, get up there. I'm like, gosh, shit. And then, oh, I felt lifted up. I mean, shit, even my boss called me while I was speaking, and I didn't see it. And thank God I didn't see it because I would have been so self-consumed and self-absorbed about making it to work for a 1 hour call out to get paid for 4 hours. And my mind would have been attached to that money, that success point. But I'm no longer, I've been separated from that. I felt lifted up in that moment because I was being useful. I was spreading this message with joy and for fun and for free. I feel lifted up right now. You should have saw me 3 hours ago, Paige. I had a little Grinch face on, man. Yeah, I was not a pleasant person to be around, right? And I felt lifted up because I was useful, right? And now we're going into this, and I love this part. It says God's impact on me was sudden and profound. Now, God's impact on me has been sudden and profound many times. Just happened to me just now. Like I feel the spirit in and working in and through me. And before I was listening to the narrative and the story that were in my head, and I was going down a dark path. And I did something I really didn't want to do was go to my damn home group. Who wants to go to their damn home group when it's 20 degrees outside Fahrenheit? I don't know what that is in Celsius, Page. But I'm going outside at 20 degrees or Fahrenheit to a meeting. I know, oh, there's probably 4 or 5 people. What the hell is why do I need to go there? And all of a sudden I feel amazingly lifted up like a great clean wind blew through and through me, right? Yet again, my spiritual experience that happened 5 years ago had an expiration date. I need to continuously grow it. And I did actions where I really don't want to do. I surrendered to the fact that I got to go to my damn home group. And what happened? Something revelatory happened. You're looking at someone who is not the same person I was 3 hours ago. Trust me, I'll put my wife's phone number in the chat. You guys call her and ask her what her thoughts about me were 3 hours ago. They weren't pleasant. I was an unlovely creature. Sober, sober. All right, thank God. All right, for a moment I was alarmed and called my friend the Dr. Silky, to ask if I were still sane. He listened and wondered as I talked, asked if I still sane, like what happened? His old mind is gone and something new has entered in. And I think about that. I think I talked about it last week, kind of being a cry-sucking, crybaby, right? I'm a baby in early recovery, right? And I have this new mind and then this new spirit and this new way of life. It's very new. For 20 years, I got drunk and high, and I've been sober for about a week now. you know. And I had a revelatory experience in rehab where I just gave everything to God, and His impact on me was sudden and profound. I experienced the power of God in that moment, and I don't know where the hell I was, but long story short, my old mind left me. Now I'm a newborn baby talking about God, 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 God in this new rehab. People thought I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in this rehab, right? Go, who is this guy talking about God, right? I'm a newborn baby. I need nurture. I need to be developed. I need someone to hold my hand. I need someone to help walk me through this life, this journey, right? That's why I recommend that you have a sponsor, that you recommend to have more than just one person who is in a recovered state to be part of your core, be part of your herd, right? We're stronger in numbers. Now, I used to diss a fellowship all the time because all the BS they talk about, but there's strength in numbers, right? We don't do this alone, because if I did this alone, I'm gonna die separately. Period. That's why we do this together. I mean, shit, you guys know what happened to me 2 months ago. The fellowship carried my ass through that, right? Now I'm gonna need all three sides of the triangle, and Bill's going into the other portion of the triangle in in the next couple of pages. We'll get there. He said, finally, he shook his head. This is the doc. Something had happened to you. I don't understand. But you better hang on to it, bro. That's how they talk back in the 30s, right? Or my homie, that's how they said things back then. You better hang on to it, bro. Anything is better than the way you were before or the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have such experiences. He knows they are real. Like, look, I mean, you're looking at it. I said this before, I'm a miraculous demonstration of the power of God. You're looking at a miracle. I say this all the time. I believe in miracles because I am a miracle. You're talking to someone who should have died a long time ago and who is still breathing and hanging out with you on a Friday night reading a book together with, I don't know, I saw 40 people on here before. 40 people on here reading a book. You know why we're doing this? Because I have recovered. And I've been given the opportunity and the power to help another person. So do you have that ability as well. If you surrender and fully accept the plan that is outlined in this book. And it ain't easy. Something's gonna die. The alcoholic ego is fighting for its damn life when it goes through these steps. Say it over and say it over again. Do the opposite of whatever you don't want to do, and watch your life be recreated from the bottom up. Right? Watch you have experiences like Bill. I mean, shit, I just had an experience an hour ago, and that has felt that has snuck into this sneaky description of a spiritual experience. Like, who would ever thought? I have spiritual experiences on a daily basis. Sometimes, Paige, I'm too smart to even realize I have them. And then I become aware of them when I look back at them. Like, that's what happened to me. I don't know what the hell happened to me an hour ago. Something happened. Something happened. God was working in and through me, and He's doing it still right now. And I'm not thinking about, oh, I'm losing 4 hours of overtime because I'm on a meeting right now. No, I have the opportunity to be useful with you for fun and for free, and I get paid. And was it what is that? What is that guy? The digger,
God,
the gold,
God
the
prospect
the
here.
go- the grand prospector. Yeah, I get to pick this treasure, this gold all the time. I get to do it for the remainder of my life. And the best way for me to get is to give. That didn't make sense to me. I could get choked up with so much gratitude. That's what happened to me earlier. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting choked up. I got to give it away. And when I give it away, I get this spirit that Bill's talking about on page 14. And you could have that experience too if you continuously practice this stuff as a way of life. All right, Paige, back to you. Pew pew.
Awesome. All right. So first off, it is 20 degrees Fahrenheit is minus 6 degrees Celsius, minus 7 if we round. I'm sure everyone was on the edge of their seat for that. Is she going to convert the temperature or not? Heck yeah, I did. And also, I got to go to speak at an in-person meeting a little bit
It's
later.
cold.
It's cold. We've
Mhm.
got we're about minus 17 Celsius, and it said something like 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's what we're rocking and rolling. And actually, that's what
Ooh.
Sponsy was calling, is because he was like, wanted to wish me luck. Uh, and what he heard was whoops, as I accidentally answered, and then hung up on him. And so, what is the 1930s definition of the word proposal?
Not
It is
yet.
that which is offered for consideration or acceptance. So
Wow.
these are things that we are offering for your consideration or acceptance. And I kind of like, I love that. And I joke
Mhm.
about that idea that this whole deal, it's consensual. If you don't want to do
Yeah.
it, nobody's going to make you do it. You know who'll make you do it? The pain and suffering of your illness. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. Alrighty, and yes, I love that it's like Bill was like, have I lost my mind? Have I lost my frickin' mind? And Dr. Silkworth's like, well, maybe, I don't know. Like, maybe you have, but it's better than what you were. But from that point of, I don't know what's wrong with you, to exactly what Terry was talking about. This idea, the doctor now sees many men who have had such experiences. He knows that they are real. And I love when Terry talks about like, I believe in miracles because I am a miracle. But that's the thing, that's what's on offer. It is not an idea of God, it is an experience with this power. That's what's on offer. That's what I'm after. Just like I was not once after the idea of a drink or the idea of a Huda crack or the idea of a pill. I was after the experience. And these are experience. This whole deal is experiential. It's not intellectual. I got to have the experience, but I promise it's on all offer for all of us. So it says, while I lay in the hospital, the thought came to mind that there were thousands of, and I want to emphasize, hopeless, hopeless alcoholics. Because when I can see the reality of my predicament as an alcoholic or an addict or whatever brings you to this all inclusive study, when I see the reality of my predicament and I see that I am hopeless, then I'm willing to grab a hold of those revolutionary drastic. Ooh, that's pretty drastic. That's when I'm willing to grab a hold of those proposals. When I see that I am hopeless. I don't got nothing that I can put between me and the first drink, first drug, first whatever. And there's nothing I got that I can put between me. Alrighty. So when it says, While I lay in the hospital, the thought came to mind that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They, in turn, might work with others. So, in this moment, he has a spiritual experience. And with one of the most sure, oh, drastic. What does drastic mean? Beautiful. I love that question. So I'll get you the 1930s definition after Terry's done talking. But to be drastic is like, you want me to do what? What? Like I'm describing the definition with a feeling. I'm describing it based on vibes, which is why I find dictionaries interesting because I'm just all about the vibes. It's like, whoa, I don't want to do, you want me to do what? That's the feeling of drastic, but I'll get you the 1930s definition here in a little bit. Um, but this moment, Bill Wilson has a spiritual experience. And one of the most sure signs of a spiritual experience is the desire to go help someone else. It's like this idea I get so filled up with this power, with God's love, with God's grace, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, that it overflows. And I just have to. I just have to share it with others. You know what I mean? And some of you might know what I mean at a bit of a smaller scale than what happened to Bill. But you know that you know when you've ever listened. Now I don't listen to a lot of music, and so feel free to make fun of me. Do it in the chat. It's not like I don't get distracted or anything. That's the perfect place to put anything. Ooh, off I go. But it's like, you know, when you hear a song that just touches your soul, and you just want to share it with somebody. Do you know what it's like when you're watching like a sunset? You know, one of those sunsets where it's that deep, vibrant orange and pink, and it just takes your breath away. And you take a picture of it. Why? You want to remember the moment, but you want to show others. We want to share this experience. Now, I say that with a little asterisk because if you're like me and you're here today, you're like, I don't want to sponsor others. That means I haven't had the spiritual awakening. That means I can't sponsor others. No, 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 absolutely not. Oftentimes I got to go do it. And if now I have some sponsees here, so I know I shouldn't say that. So I've never had this feeling, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But you know that feeling when you have to work with a sponsee and you're like, oh God, I'm so tired. Could you please cancel? But don't cancel because then I have to have a serious conversation about, showing up and keeping commitments. I know, nobody here has ever felt that way. Me neither. But then after, man, after we always feel better. So that's what I want to contextualize. But also in this moment, this is Bill Wilson's vision. And if you're writing in your book, which the cool kids are just here, you don't have to be a cool kid to write in your book. I don't want the cool kids to be too exclusive. We're all cool kids. I love you. Uh, but you can make a little note that this is Bill Wilson's vision, this idea that the experience that he had, maybe he could help others have this experience and they might work with others. Now, that vision is going to be given to us. And we see that in the chapter A Vision for You, which starts on page 151. That's just only if you wanted to make a note to connect the two. So this vision of I've had this experience and maybe I can help others who can help others and a fellowship will grow. That vision, that responsibility that Bill Wilson had this moment, God placed it on his heart, man, I got to help others. That's now our responsibility. So with that happy job assignment, over to Terry. Pew pew.
Thanks, Pete. I'm just saying, everyone just let's go back in time, all of us. While I lay in the hospital, remember when you were in the hospital bed? I mean, detox or rehab or whatever. Did you have this thought? Did you have Bill's thought here? How I could help so many people right now. Or blah, blah. No, I was thinking about myself the entire, I was like just drenched in self-pity, thinking, poor me, all that crap. Think about that. That's a thought. That's a God thought. Think about Just think about it. He's in the hospital thinking about how he could help someone else. That is a transformation of mind, body, and spirit. Old mind's gone, baby. We got a new mind coming in, and it's thinking about you, thinking about others. How can I be useful to you? Right? And this is kind of it's the second part of the 12 step where we try to help other alcoholics. He's going and he's describing the 12 step here. Now we're going into the service portion of the triangle, right? And it talks about on this page, on this chapter, on this well, chapter, this paragraph here. So my friend Ebby had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles or these steps in all my affairs. That's my favorite word in the big book. I think we tried looking up the definition last week, page. I think we got a good one. Particularly, was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me? Without works is dead, or was dead, he said, and how appalling true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect, I think the 1930s definition is perfect means to make better. That's what that was given to me. So to make better and to enlarge means make bigger, means so make better and enlarge, make bigger. His spiritual life. Spiritual life is a relationship with God, yourself, and others, right? Steps one, two, and three is building a relationship with God. Four through seven is building a relationship with my true authentic self. Steps eight and nine is building a relationship with others. Step 10 is growing and maintaining a relationship with our true authentic self. 11 is growing and maintaining a relationship with God. And step 12 is growing and maintaining a relationship with others, a spiritual life through work. Work means intensive work with another alkie. Me sitting down with you, reading the big book out loud to you, helping you with your fourth step, listening to your fifth step, helping you with your amends, guiding you through the process of recovery, right? And self-sacrifice, right? Giving up my time to be with to for you, for fun and for free for others. I could not survive the certain trials and certain low spots ahead if I did not work. I like to put this in the first person because it kind of talks to me. If I did not do any work, like doing my nightly review the past few days, no wonder why I was so pissy 3 hours ago. And I would surely drink again. And if I continued on this path of being angry because I was a Grinch just 3 hours ago, I mean, it was only 3 hours that I was in a resentment, but imagine if I was doing that for 2 weeks straight. This is what I would have happened. I would surely drink again. And then for me, for drink, I would surely die. Then faith. And then they're talking about a spiritual death, right? And then faith would be dead indeed. It with us is just like that. Now, it's kind of a nice little this is a thread too throughout the big book. You're gonna notice it in Jim's story. Jim said that he failed to enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. Same thing. I mean, Jimmy probably made all of it, made, 90% of his amends. Maybe, did a great fifth step, but maybe left something like a deep, dark secret out, didn't tell him. Maybe Jimmy did some of this, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. This is what they're talking about through work and self-sacrifice for others. And he drank again. I mean, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed this path. What are they talking about? When I failed to enlarge my spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, right? I have to continuously do this on a daily basis, or I'm not going to survive anything. And I could go through all my experiences about not just surviving, but thriving through crazy stuff. But I'll tell you this right now, when I am trying to do the service portion of my triangle, and I'm trying to be a service to you for fun and for free, no strings attached. I'm just that happy, joyous, and free elf, that Santa's helper, no strings attached, right? I'm not trying to be kind or considerate or generous. I'm not being mean, egotistical, or selfish, dishonest. I'm doing none of that. I'm just being useful to be for you and give you my time because that's the most important thing and precious thing I could give to you, right? And doing that, I will survive. Bad stuff is going to happen. Like bad stuff has happened in my life recently, and not only did I survive it, I was a joy bringer during it. Like, who would ever thought of that? That I was someone who would help people come together during a crisis or help people come together during a tragedy. I would have never imagined that, 10 years ago. Hell no. Here's the point. The point is that bad stuff is going to happen. It's going to happen. A loved one is going to pass away. Someone you care and deeply love is going to hurt you. Someone you're going to lose a ton of money. You might lose your house and sober. You might be bankrupt. You might be a bum living under the bridge, but you're still happy, joyous, and free. What's up with that? It's because I have enlarged and made better my spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. You could survive anything. That's been my experience. And the past years have been going on, and I have revolted against it. Guys, I said it all the time. I have ADD, alcoholic defiance disorder. It's like I'm getting treatment on a daily basis for this bad boy, right? I resist a lot of the steps. I even resisted the last 3 days of doing inventory, calling people, even postponing bookings and all sorts of stuff. I even stopped going to a meetings for the last week and a half, right? Because I've been so self-consumed with me, thinking about all the worldly clamors that are mostly with him. I said, bad stuff is going to happen. I'm going to listen to the story that's in my head, and I'm going to go along with it, and I'm going to be completely disturbed. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But literally an hour and a half ago, I was amazingly lifted up. Like, what the hell happened? Because I was useful. I was useful. Yeah, there was only 4 people there, but we had a blast. We had a blast. I mean, we're talking about the 4 step, and I'm like, God damn, what a great time to be talking about the 4 step when I'm currently in a resentment. The book met me where I was at in that very moment. Like, what the hell is that witchcraft? And I find out on page 103, we're not witch burners, by the way. All I have to say is that if you continuously do this, you'll be one of the people that rarely fails. You'll be one of the rare ones. You won't be one of the people that has to go out and go drink again in order to have an experience to get your ass back to doing the work again. You could continuously have what we have, which is what you already have deep down within you. A relationship with power is just blocked. We get continuously unblocked, it will burst out of you, and you will live in a moment of bliss and fun and having a wonder and freedom. Like you're looking at someone who is free, looking at a stop and shop in front of me. Like I'm not looking to go inside and go grab booze right now. I'm looking to carry the message to you. I'm talking way too much. Pew pew pew. Back to you, Paige.
Pew, pew, pew. Nah, you're great, Terry. All righty. So, over here in Dictionary Corner, uh, we got the night. Now, I want to preface this. So, I don't have, the cool kids. They got the unofficial, but like everyone's got it. 1930s dictionary. So some of the definitions are the same. I just happen to have a dictionary from the 1930s, so it's a little different. So I'm not saying this is the last word on definitions, but I like having fun going through the dictionary. So drastic in my 1930s dictionary is, and I love this, it starts with powerful. Powerful. It goes on to say vigorous and extreme. Pretty drastic. I love how we start with this. Whoo, that's drastic. And find that it is drastic. This is why I like dictionaries. I am so much fun at parties. Terry talks about how I'm the same in person as I am. We were at this hotel, and I'm out in the parking lot. I was waiting for a ride, and I got my binoculars. I'm bird watching, and Terry's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm Paige." I'm like, "Hi." Did you know that we've got some? Anywho, it was you don't need to know the birds. It's all right. So perfect. So, and what's interesting is that when it says perfect, it says complete. without defect or blemish, blameless. Some of you are like, oh, uh-oh. The next one is, this is where I get lost. Pure, uh, possessing every moral excellence, fully skilled or accomplished. And then it talks about in grammar, but it goes on to say to make perfect, to complete or finish. But I'll point out, we are never done. That is why we talk about, and this is one of my hills that I am pedantic upon. It is spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. I'm aiming for that spiritual perfection, knowing that I will, oh, we're on page 15, knowing that I will fall short and I will be human. And just like Terry shared in his experience, man, the book, the program, God meets us where we're at. And if I'm open enough or willing enough, doesn't always look like, oh boy, but willing enough to take the actions that I need to take, a change comes over me. I feel like when I do the, oh boy, I sound like Mickey Mouse. Is that a Mickey voice? I don't know. I don't know. Some of you are like, it sure is goofy. That was my Disney character pun for the day. Thank you. All righty. And Terry's experience is my experience. Some of the most painful things that have ever happened to me in my life have happened to me while I was sober. And the juxtaposition of the reality of my alcoholism, the reality of my addiction is that I will relapse, I will drink again, I will use again. The only thing that can prevent a relapse is a spiritual experience that I grow, that I deepen, that I expand, that I have more of, that I continue. That is the only thing. Nothing less than that, and I will relapse. But the same alcoholic, the same little hopeless. Earlier today, I was describing myself as a squeaky little crackhead because my voice is coming back. But you know what I mean? The same little squeaky crackhead that could not stay sober is able to stay sober through some of the most incredibly painful times in my entire life. Not all, by the way, not all the bad stuff. A lot of it happened, out there. And oh man, it's so interesting when I talk about it and when I don't. But it feels like a moment to talk about it. So one of the things, and what I don't like talking about it in person, because when I talk about it in person, everyone's like, "Ooh, is she going to talk about?" I'm doing an in-person talk, and I promise you, I'm not talking about it. They can wait and live in this wonder and mystery. But for all y'all, when I was 18 months sober, I very suddenly developed a neurological condition that left me from that point until today, just over 15 years into my sobriety, in the use of a wheelchair. And I do like saying it on Zoom because when I'm on Zoom, it's like plot twist. You know what I mean? Like, woo! Like, who saw that coming? And some of you are like, oh, we knew something was wrong though, girl. We couldn't put our finger on it, but we knew something was wrong, right? And I can tell you, like, really, truly, what happened is it was some of the most painful time in my life. I very suddenly lost the ability to walk without assistance. I developed vertigo, so I've chronic now. You guys actually, y'all know the spinning bed? You know when you drink too much, you get the spins? Yeah, that foot on the floor does not help. That's what I got rocking and rolling. Wee! And so some of you are like, oh, that's why she's so off balance. I'm all over the place. And I also so chronic now. I'd have all these terrible pain and all this stuff, neurological symptoms, but it also affected my cognition and my memory. And I had to learn how to read again in the room. And I always point this out because I think it's funny. Is what that means is I had to learn how to say anonymity in front of all of y'all twice. I don't need an ounce of sympathy, but I think I need a gold star for that. You know what I mean? I had to stumble through anonymity, like twice. Now I'll read the traditions. Don't you worry about it. But that pain and that suffering and that darkness. I mean, my life was going one way, and in an instant, it was a complete 180. And some of the most dark periods, thank you for the gold stars, Howard. Some of the darkest periods happened after that. Because I'll tell you, man, oh, okay. I'm like, are we telling this story? I'm like, darn it. Thanks, Kathy. Also, gold stars from Kathy. I'll tell this story. Is There was a period, it was shortly after I got sick, and I was just, I mean, I was wrapped up in the bondage of self. And I was just in so much pain and so much, what the F is the point of my stupid life? Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm not going to graduate on time. I'm not going to do the thing. Like, what's the point? And I was so sick, and I just wanted to do what I like to call the emotional turtle, where you pull the covers over your head, and it's just like, I don't want to do it anymore. And then God showed up. And God showed up in a way that God shows up for a drunk like me, with an alcoholic who needs help. And it was at a period where, and if you're around this thing for a while, you'll know this, where we were losing a lot of people. And it was funeral after funeral after funeral. I'm somebody who goes to funerals. And it was one more death and one more funeral. And I just did not want to do it again. I just didn't want to do it. And then God showed up, and that alcoholic said, Paige, I need you to be there with me because you guys taught me well. I said, yes. And I remember I didn't sleep well that night. I had a garbage sleep, but I remember I was sitting in my wheelchair. And again, I'm filled with this, like, I'm a loser, I'm a piece of garbage, I hate myself, there's no point to my existence, the ideation is on me. But I remember I was sitting in my wheelchair, waiting for him to pick me up. I was outside, and there was a peace and a presence that came over me that was not me. And that was at that time in my life, at that time in my recovery, I would get these glimpses of them when I was doing something for somebody else that I did not want to be doing. Do you guys know what I'm saying? That's when I was feeling that. Now that feeling today is far more consistent. It is far more how I live my life today, living in that fourth dimension. And my friend picked me up, and we go to the funeral, and it was freaking heartbreaking. It is, to watch, like, it was hard to watch parents having to bury their child. You know what I mean? It was hard. And it wasn't pleasant. It's not about me, but it wasn't, that's tough. But as I was leaving the service, there was a woman in a wheelchair who came up to me, and she said, I'm so glad you're here because I don't feel so alone. And at that point in my life, man, it's like, what's God's will for like a loser like me? I'm not gonna I did go back and graduate. I ended up being the valedictorian. I only say that because my sponsor at the time made me go be the valedictorian so I could tell people, but I always forget to tell people, to be like, look what God does for you. I forget. I don't think it's that important. Uh, but like, I'm this loser. I'm this piece of garbage. I don't work, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna have all these things that I'm supposed to have, but none of that matters. This silly little drunk, this squeaky little crackhead, I get to be an agent for God, and I love how Terry says it. I get to be a joy bringer. I get to bring joy. I get to show other people that they are not alone, that there is a way out. And I promise you, man, I still don't have a big fancy life. But I have a life where I get to be of service, and it is the coolest thing. It is the coolest thing to be able to show up. And the difference between the Paige who wanted to die sober in the rooms, like under the lash of the pain and the suffering and trauma, because it was traumatic. I genuinely have some PTSD and CPTSD from some of the stuff that happened during that time of my life. But the difference between that Paige who did not want to be here and the Paige that is annoying with her enthusiasm and should probably tone it down a little, the difference between that is very simply the difference between a rigorous application of the 12 steps and not. Y'all know what I'm saying? That was what took me from there to here. That is the difference. Now, Terry, I know you got to leave 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, so I'm going to give you the next paragraph because I went on a little long. So it's over to you.
Yeah, I could listen to you all day. You want to keep talking? We're good. That was a great, wonderful story. Where were we? 15. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. I got my mentor in Minnesota. I'm gonna post this for you guys. if I can. Hold on. My mentor in Minnesota, his name was John McDougall. He was the director, spiritual director at Hazleton. He left Hazleton for to go to the retreat, which is a 12-step recovery place. And because they were pushing insurance on that rehab in Hazleton, they were trying to treat drugs with drugs or anti-abuse with that stuff, and it didn't fly with him. But he put this definition of enthusiasm, and I want to read it to you guys because I just thought it was great. And it says, if we pull apart a word enthusiasm into pieces, it comes apart as enthusiasm. Right? En means in. Thusia is from a ancient Greek word called theos, or God, and ism is a system of belief like communism or capitalism. So enthusiasm is a belief system based on allowing the Spirit of God to fill us with enthusiasm. So as we start to feel great, we naturally want this for all alcoholics and all addicts who still suffer. And I just thought that was just such a great I thought that was just pinpoint on exactly what enthusiasm is. Like I got relieved and I want to talk to everybody about this stuff, right? It's kind of like when Bill W was talking to Bill Dotson's wife. He's like, Henrietta, the good Lord has been so good to me, curing me of this terrible disease that all I want to do is talk about it and telling other people. I love talking about this stuff and telling other people, right? I'm filled with enthusiasm. I'm filled with the God within me, right? And I get, and this is something that Bill did. Am I willing to do that as well? Hell yeah. But sometimes Paige, I think she was talking about it. I don't want to pick up someone's call sometimes. Especially if I'm thinking about myself all day. That's kind of a little red flag. Like, Terry, you might be a little not in such great fit spiritual condition, right? It's a little red flag for me to see that. Now, this is what Bill did. And if I want what Bill has, I do what Bill did. So it was fortunate for my old business associates to remain skeptical for a year and a half. That was that's my experience too, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. If you're 18 months, who's 18 months and less sober here? You just raise your hand. Any takers here? All right, we got Craig. Yep. Anyone else? So, Craig, you're gonna be hit with waves. It could be very strong and very large. Hey, Jolie, what's up? Yeah, Josie, you're gonna be hit with waves. Waves. Could be tidal waves, could be little baby waves, it doesn't matter. You're gonna be hit with waves of self-pity, feeling sorry for yourself, and you're going to be hit with resentment in the first 18 months, which will nearly drive you back to drink, which it almost did to me in the first year and a half. But just like Bill's experience, just like my experience, because the big book is validating my experience, it says, but as soon found out when all other measures failed, meaning the first 11 steps, work with another alky was save the effing day. That's what it used to say. Bill, that's how Bill talked back then, but he changed it because of the traditions, right? So work with another alky or an addict will save your behind. Giving your time for fun and for free will save your tush from going out. If you are being plagued like I was a couple hours ago by waves of resentment, I was put in a position to be useful because it was my damn home group, and damn it, I have to go to my home group because it's my damn home group, and I have a commitment to this damn home group. That saved my behind because I was put in a position to carry the message. All right. My recommendation to you, if you're under 18 months or you're kind of going a little loopy and you're in self-pity and resentment, go find someone to help. Go give your time for fun and for free to someone. Don't tell anyone about it either. Many times I've gone to the old hospital in despair, and I've heard Scott Lee talking about this. Is this despair means hopelessness, right? So you have depression, then right below that is despair, which is hopelessness. I've been in despair, going. If this is what Bill did, If you are feeling in despair and hopeless, you've gone through the first 11 steps, you had a vital spiritual experience, you're getting plagued by resentment and self-pity, what you're supposed to do is get off your ass and go help someone. There's someone right now, this very moment, that wants to put a bullet in their head, and you have the opportunity to help them out, but you're so stuck in your own head. Get off of the couch and call up a hospital, call up a detox, call up a damn sober living place. Like, hey, is there anyone I could talk to there? And I would love to carry them, or tell them my story or whatever. All you gotta do is talk about yourself, and all of a sudden you'll be amazingly lifted, like it talks about. And on talking to a man there, or a woman there. I would be, like it says right there, amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. I'm back on the beam, baby. I'm back on the beam. It is a design for living, fourth dimension, mind, body, spirit, all interlocked together. And as a result of that, a design for living that works in the rough going. Yet again, bad stuff is going to happen. You're going to have a justified resentment. Anyone go out or anyone go out drinking because of a justified resentment? I have. Anyone go out drinking because of justified worry? I have. Justified depression, justified anxiety. It's justified and it's actually real. This design for living will help you through the rough goings to that justified crap. You'll have a moment of grace, a pause moment, which is right here, right now. And you'll say, you know what? Just like Bill did when he was at the Mayflower Hotel. What about those other alcoholics? What about my family members? How's my sponsor? I know I just thought about right now, how was the first person I worked with? His name was Vincent. How's he doing? I haven't spoken to him in 4.5 years. How's he doing? Maybe I'll give him a call because I've been in resentment all day. And maybe I'll do that. I do have to drive back home to go get my relieve the babysitter, so I will be here. But thank you guys, and back to you, Paige.
It's I love listening to you. And as you were talking, I was like, oh no, we've kind of relieved. Like I was like, oh, we're going over, but I don't want to remind him that we're going over because I want to keep listening. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I love that you brought up that definition of enthusiasm because I love the Greek of to be filled with God's Spirit because I promise you, it's not me. I'm not naturally enthusiastic, and it's also not a mask that I put on. It's not a thing that I pretend. It happens to me. Now, I had a look at it in my 1930s dictionary, and enthusiasm, it said elevation of fancy. And what that means is I'm fancy. This is the first time anyone's ever called me that. That's not fancy as in the same definition. When I saw that, I wanted to be like, oh, and I am. I'm wearing my to go out hoodies. It's not one of my to stay in hoodies. Ooh, fancy. It says I'm helping. Uh, and then I looked up despair, and it says to abandon all hope or expectation, become hopeless. And that is fertile ground for an alcoholic. And I love as we went to that paragraph, it says, my wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. Problems, not problem. This is a way of life that works to solve all our problems with an S. Problems. And that's one of those lines that I'm like, man, I want to hold that up to my experience. Terry talks about this is a book of mirrors. I want to hold this book up to my experience. Have I abandoned myself with enthusiasm to the idea of helping others? And if not, I'm not here to guilt you. I'm not here to shame you. I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. Let's get jazzercised about sponsoring. You know what I mean? Let's go. Um, and I also want to point something out. If we have a look where it says I was not too well at the time and and actually before that, I'm going to talk about Bill Wilson was homeless in sobriety. Howard will correct me, and I believe it was he had 53 different addresses. There was a year in his sobriety. Was it 53? 51, 51. Oh, two off. I just knew I was close, but not close enough. He had 51 different addresses, and Lois, in a year. Man, he struggled financially in sobriety. Now I'll be honest, that's not most people's experience, but that was his. My sobriety is not contingent on anything outside of myself. My sobriety is contingent upon my relationship with this power. He goes on to say, is plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink. Woo! Let's go across the page, back to page 14. He has this white light spiritual experience of the luminous variety, as William James would say, a feeling of victory, peace, and serenity. Page 15, self-pity and resentment that almost drives him back to drink. This is why this is not a set it and forget it program. This is why I can't do a little bit and then rest on my laurels. Some of you guys know I like to joke, man, I can't have crock pot sobriety. I can't set it and forget it. I gotta have stir fry sobriety where I'm in there working it every single day and doing it. And that's what we're talking about here. That I need to build and maintain that spiritual connection. And when all other messages fail to work with another, alcoholic would save the day. That's the deal. We got to help others. We got to work with others. And if you've not done that yet, again, I'm not here to guilt or shame. It's just not my MO. But what I will say is let us help you get there. Because this was everything. Working with others was everything that I was looking for in the pipe, everything I was looking for in the bottle. You know what I'm saying? Let's have that experience. And I love that it says, on talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up. And what on page 14, he felt lifted up. Again, that's a beautiful little comparison of what it is like to have the spiritual experience and what it's like to share it with others. And I will just emphasize it is a design for living. A way of life. Lame. Yeah, I got to keep doing this thing. So emphasize, highlight, underline way of life, and it works in rough going. This is not a fair weather program. This is not a fair weather way of life. This is a way of life. And from my experience and from Terry's experience, and man, if we're human beings, we're going to experience the human condition, which is grief and loss and pain and suffering. This is a way of life that works. And so if you've not had that experience, please get connected, stay after, let us help you. And with that, we'll wrap it up and I'll stop the recording.